Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran and it's time to get back to Assassination Rogues. This spec feels super smooth to play in patch 9.1. Fantastic damage output, especially if you can pick up the new Sylvanas daggers. It seems like this raid in particular for patch 9.1 is going to be primarily an Assassination Rogue raid. There's a lot of bosses that need to be toppled over, and with your Vendetta, big toxic blades, massive envenoms, I think you're gonna have some fun if you never thought of picking up a rogue. Assassination is definitely one of the specs you should definitely check out right now. In this video, we'll be doing an Assassination Rogue PvE guide for both raiding as well as Mythic Pluses, talking about the talents you're going to want to run, the legendaries you're going to want to run, some of the choices of covenants, and get you started whether you're a new player checking out this class for the first time, or if you're someone who's been playing the game for quite a bit. Anyway, let's dive into the Assassination Rogue patch 9.1 PvE guide. First of all, let's talk about covenants. I'm going to do this video a little bit differently than what I did with my Outlaw Rogue guide. We'll first start off with covenants. Technically, you can run whatever covenant you want to, but let's first get through the people that need to be told which covenant you want to run. If you just want to be recommended something that's a safe choice, that's a very strong choice right now, you would just rather have someone pick for you, I think you should play Venthyr. It is slightly ahead of other covenants. But now for the nuanced take, all the covenants that rogues get to run, no matter the spec, are actually very close to each other in sims and performance. Now, Assassination might look a little bit ahead on Blood Mallet, but that's mostly because the new Venthyr legendary is, I think, a little overvalued on there, especially with the fact that it is getting nerfs coming this Tuesday, Wednesday. If you do end up playing Assassination just for raids, I can see why Venthyr might be a little bit better. The sim numbers are showing that the damage for single target should be pretty substantial. But if you're someone who wants to play a different covenant, maybe you just prefer Necrolord, maybe you like the looks of the Kyrian or how the Fey ability works, and you just want to play a covenant you enjoy, I think you should do it. Because if you're playing a playstyle and maybe a certain class, covenant combo is your favorite, just something you enjoy more, then you'll probably have more fun with the game. And when you're having more fun, then you'll actually be able to get better at that class if you're really enjoying its playstyle. Next, let's talk about the talents. Assassination Rogues have a couple different builds that they can run for raids and AoE, and depending how you build your character, there are some quality choices. In the first row, Blindside is a really strong choice. Mutilate has a chance to give you free ambushes, double the chance if the enemy is at low health, kind of like a mini execute mechanic. This one really smooths out the rotation of Assass. It gives you a lot of combo points, and this is just a really good quality single target talent to pick up. Elaborate planning is fantastic if you're going to be doing anything more than just a single target. Your finisher moves will grant you 10% damage increase. Fantastic for multi-dotting, fantastic for AoE in particular. Can be also good in single targets if you want to sim your character. Level 25, I prefer Subterfuge. You technically can run Master Assassin. This one sometimes is recommended for single target pure DPS builds, but I prefer Subterfuge in majority situations. I like the damage that it does with Garrote. I like the cleave capability, the AoE potential to Garrote 3 enemies in a row. I think the dots can be fantastic, especially if you're not going to be 100% of the time on the boss. Having a fat dot on the enemy while you have to move away from mechanics will just let you damage keep on ticking. In level 30, we have two very good options. Well, in fact, three. Mark for Death is not a terrible option, but with the way Assassination works, right now you don't necessarily need Mark for Death. It can be useful in Mythic Pluses if that is your favorite playstyle. Deeper Stratagem is fantastic in pure boss fights, giving you extra combo points to work with and allowing your dots to just roll longer, allowing for massive envenoms, and together with the Blindside talent, which is going to generate you free combo points, it just kind of combines really well together and gives you more of that value combo point generation by letting you store extra. Vigor ends up being a very strong choice for Mythic Pluses in my opinion. Huge fan of the extra energy regen, letting you get triple Garrote on multiple trash packs in the opener. Level 35, Cheat Death is generally the most preferred choice. You can run Elusiveness or Leeching Poison if that is your take. Some fights do want you to run those talents because they are simply better, but Cheat Death is a great kind of safety net in case you get screwed over by a mechanic. You don't completely die, you can continue doing the fight. Great for rogues that are learning fights, but also great for rogues that are just simply finding themselves standing in mechanics, and this, at least while you're learning a rogue, being able to cheat one of those mechanics, making mistakes and being forgiven for it is a very nice quality of life thing. Level 40 row is really just a utilitarian row. Do you want to go with the iron wire for longer silences? Do you want to go pray in the weak to kidney shot an enemy, allowing your allies to do more damage to them? Or are you going to need to use a kidney shot to stun lock a target, where you might want to take internal bleeding for just extra bleed damage? This one is really your personal choice. In a raid, this will make a difference, but in M+, ask your tank, what do they need? Do they need iron wire, or are you going to need to kidney shot certain mobs, and then make the best choice going forward? In a level 45 row, I wish there was a lot of choices. Exsanguinate sounds fantastic, Venom Rush is super fun as an idea, but Alacrity just gives you your best secondary stat, which is haste, lets you stack it up quite a bit. It's just the best in slot row for AoE and single target currently. Level 50, you really have two good strong choices. Poison Bomb is fantastic for single target, maybe with a little bit of off cleave. Every time you rupture or envenom the enemy, there's a chance that it will drop a pool of acid. Not insane for single target damage, not mandatory, but it's not terrible. Crimson Tempest ends up being a lot better for Mythic Pluses, especially if you're going to be doing M+ and pulling massive trash bags, putting bleeds on multiple enemies. It is target cap, however, but the bleeds can be fantastic with some of the legendary choices you might want to run in your M+. For stats, Assassination, if you're a new player, you generally just want to go with whatever gives you the highest item level. Your stats for secondaries in particular are all very close to one another, and Agility ends up being your best stat. Of course, you can also sim your character, but if you need a bit of a cheat sheet of which stats are looking best, if you really want to min-max your gear, Agility is going to be your best primary stat. But afterwards, in terms of secondaries, Haste is going to be highly valuable for the extra dot ticks, but also the extra energy regeneration and auto attack speed that you get. Critical Strike is fantastic for the damage as well as the extra common points you generate because of a passive that Assassination rolls with, Seal Fate. Every time your ability critical strikes an enemy, it can generate extra common points, fantastic in Mythic Pluses in particular. When you Phantom Knives, it can just fill you full of common points because of a couple of crits. Versatility is also fantastic. Damage output of all the physical damage, your poison damage, your bleed damage, just overall wraps it up and just gives you more damage output. Mastery is also another good stat, improving upon your bleeds as well as poisons. So none of the stats for Assassination are really all that bad. If any of them are highly valued over others, I would say Haste is one of the higher weighted stats for this spec. For legendaries, we have a couple of choices for Assassination, but let's first talk about the Venthyr legendary. Obedience legendary is something that's looking really strong going into this next patch. However, it has been nerfed as of recently. Obedience is still going to be really strong. I don't think it's going to fall off anytime, but Blizzard is going to be nerfing it, so you get half the versatility than normally you would. It is going to reduce its damage slightly, but I think it's still going to be a very strong legendary going forward, at least from the sims I've seen. So if you vent there, you might want to consider saving up some soul ash to play around with obedience. Outside of that, you are going to want to make yourself a Doomblade. Doomblade legendary is fantastic. Mutilate applies an extra bleed on the enemy for 8 seconds, and Venoms will also do more damage per bleed on the target, and is a must-have for any kind of single target damage output when it comes to playing your Assassination rogue. Zodiac Insignia is also great. It's great as an execute legendary. It's great for bosses that will live in that execute phase for a while, and it's a fantastic legendary for overall Mythic Plus damage. You'll be able to use it on bosses, you'll be able to use it on ads, you got a lot of bleeds and poisons to spread around anyway. This one ends up synergizing super well for M+ content in particular, but can also be really strong for certain bosses that do live in the execute phases. But those are just some of the recommendations. Don't be afraid to try out different legendaries and different builds. You can run them through sims or just craft them and see how well they perform. There's a lot of cool builds that could come out of these legendaries depending on how you change your playstyle, and there's a lot of cool potential behind some of the rogue legendaries. It's definitely worth giving them all a shot, especially if you're thinking of playing the spec in this class for patch 9.1. Now let's talk about the rotation of Assassination rogues. We'll mostly talk about the opener because the opener is going to be the most important part of an Assassination rogue playstyle in terms of establishing your damage. And then your opener kind of cascades into your rotation, which is mostly just a management minigame. So your rotation, you want to make sure you establish a Garrote, Rupture, as well as Slice and Dice on the enemy. For this setup, as a rogue, we'll be playing as a Venthyr rogue, so we'll also be throwing in our Venthyr ability Flagellation into the mix in order to supplement for that damage. So the opener for your rogue should be to open up with a Garrote, Mutilate until you have basically full common points, into Flagellation, and establish a Slice and Dice. Continue using Mutilate or Ambushes as procs if you are playing with the talent Blindside. Then you want to go for a Rupture on the enemy with a Vendetta. Build common points back up to full with Mutilate and Ambushes. Pop a Shiv on the enemy, use Envenom. And continue building up common points and using as many Envenoms inside of the Vendetta window as you can. Try to refresh your Garrote with 3 seconds on it. Vanish Garroting if you are playing Subterfuge Talent. And also try to keep your Rupture up at about refreshing it at 6 seconds or so. Your Slice and Dice should not need any refreshing because your Envenoms are going to refresh Slice and Dice for free. So the whole time you're just basically trying to maintain your bleeds and trying to use Envenoms as often as you can. If you can pull some energy, if let's say a Shiv coming up very soon, Shiv will debuff the enemy to take extra nature damage from you. So if you can pull some energy and common points, and if Shiv's coming off cooldown very soon, it's probably a good idea to Shiv the enemy, then sink a bunch of Envenoms during that Shiv window. If you're a new rogue, don't worry about it. If you're someone who's more experienced with rogue, being able to maximize that Shiv window with a bunch of Envenoms is going to be very important. From there on, maintain your bleeds. Use Envenom whenever you have full comp points and you do not need to refresh your dots. Try to line up a bunch of Venoms into your Shiv. And also try to save Shiv together with your Vendetta. So, because Shiv has a 25-second cooldown, it will desync a little bit with your Vendetta to try to make sure that it combines together, even if that means you have to delay one of the abilities, mostly delaying Shiv by a little bit, in order to make sure it's inside of your Vendetta window. For the AoE rotation, Assassination is going to run Reliable Planning, Subterfuge, Vigor, as well as Crimson Tempest. So for this playstyle, you're going to open up with a Garrote on every single enemy in that trash pack. We're mostly trying to do it at least on 3. And then you want to go and build up common points with Phantom Knives and put up Crimson Tempest as soon as you can. You also want to establish a Slice and Dice as soon as possible. Even though Slice and Dice is mostly for that single target auto attack damage, you will still want to have it on your primary enemy. If you are bursting into a big trash pack and you have, let's say, a big trash enemy in there that has more health than others, throw a Vendetta into that enemy. And that will kind of give you a lot more damage into that target. From there on, you want to just build common points with Phantom Knives. And then you'll want to replace your Garrotes with Ruptures. And you want to have about 3 Ruptures rolling for the most uptime maintenance on your energy. From there on, you build common points. You want to make sure your Slice and Dice does not fall off. And then you want to use Crimson Tempest to maintain big AoE damage. Or Envenom if the primary target that used to die before others is the focus of your gameplay. From there on, just Phantom Knives, maintain your dots on enemies, maintain your Slice and Dice. And that's really about it. And do that until enemies are all dead. When it comes to rogue conduits, there are a lot of decent choices. First things first, I'll say is most of the Covenant conduits are pretty strong. Especially if your Venti or Lash and Scars is pretty good, and you should be running it on your rogue. If you are a Necrolord, that conduit is also pretty good. The Kirin one is decent, and so is the Night Fae. If you're someone who is really min-maxing your rogue in the future, it's definitely a good idea to use the sim websites in order to figure out which Covenant and conduit is going to be the best for your character, depending if it's an AoE fight or if it's a single target fight. Then, afterwards, some of the best conduits you're going to have for Assassination rogues are well-placed steel. Probably your #1 priority conduit to achieve as soon as you can. Shiv will increase the amount of nature damage the targets take from you by an extra amount, so the higher and better you can get this conduit at a higher item level, the more damage you're going to put out, since Shiv is pretty massive for your big poison Envenom windows. Afterwards, I would say, in terms of the totem pole, Lethal Poisons is fantastic for both AoE and single target. It simply just increases the instant damage of your poisons, which can be great, again, whether you're Phantomizing in AoE dungeon, or if you're going for Envenoms and Mutilates in a pure single target fight. Maim and Mangle can be kind of okay for single target. It's not super insane, but extra damage in your Mutilate together with the Doom Blades Legendary does kind of compound together a little bit. It's a decent choice on pure single target. Poison Katara is an excellent choice in AoE, but if you are using it on single target, it actually gets almost no value. Poison Katara increases the damage of your Phantom Knives, which is great, and also increases the chance for your Phantom Knives to crit, which gives you more combo points. But this one is fantastic on AoE fights where you're constantly using Phantom Knives, but if for any reason you have to just go for pure single target and stop spamming Phantom Knives, the Poison Katara loses quite a bit of value. For this reason, we usually run well-placed steel as well as lethal poison for our potency conduits, and if you have a third choice, maybe Maim and Mangle, maybe your Covenant conduit, or maybe just another choice in your Soulbind instead. And that's going to be about everything you guys need to know to get your Assassination rogues up and running for the patch 9.1 PvE. Assass feels fantastic with this new raid tier, and it's actually really fun in Mythic Pluses. I don't really know how amazing it's going to be in Mythic Plus in comparison to specs like Outlaw and Subtlety that I've seen very good early game progression, but I think Assassination will still have its place in Mythic Plus either way. It's definitely a massive, massive monster of damage when it comes to raid output, especially with how boss heavy some of these raid fights are, where the boss is the priority target of the encounter. So it's definitely worth trying to pick up Assassination if you look at just slay some bosses in this patch 9.1. Let me know if any of you guys are considering Assass for patch 9.1 Shadowlands, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.